Hey guys, it's Divest. Today on Nuke Pilling, I wanted to talk about why investing in new nuclear power is bad for the climate and shutting down operational nuclear reactors is a good thing. Let's get into it. So we'll start this off by contrasting the French and German electrical grid. There is a lot of disinformation out there about this topic, so I just want to note the premise and the end result. Germany shut down its nuclear power plants. France did not. So what did that achieve? The peak of German nuclear electricity production per annum was 171 terawatt-hours in 2001, with a total of 209 terawatt-hours of low-carbon electricity that year. The peak of French nuclear electricity production per annum was 451 terawatt-hours, with a total of 497 terawatt-hours of low-carbon electricity from all sources in 2005. Compared to 2023, where Germany produced 9 terawatt-hours of nuclear electricity and 273 terawatt-hours of low-carbon electricity in total, representing an increase of 64 terawatt-hours of green electricity over the peak of their nuclear production in 2001. While in France, nuclear declined to 336 terawatt-hours with a total of 471 terawatt-hours of low-carbon electricity produced. The French are actually sliding backwards where they were 20 years ago, because they have lost a quarter of their nuclear electricity production and their new renewable capacity can't keep up. French energy is cleaner than Germany and has been because of their nuclear build-out, true. But the fact of the matter is that it is not relevant if they aren't able to continue expanding their nuclear fleet to replace fossil fuels. Neither Germany, France, or any other industrialized nation on the planet has yet to bring their greenhouse gas emissions down to sustainable levels. But Germany is on trajectory to do that faster than France is because of eliminating nuclear power. In fact, Germany had decreased its per capita carbon dioxide emissions by 4.1 metric tons since the peak of their nuclear production in 2001. While in the same time frame, France has only dropped 2.8 tons. Since the French haven't managed to decarbonize their energy production at all of their decarbonization came from global technological trends in energy efficiency. And on the other hand, at no point did the denuclearization of Germany lead to an increase in fossil fuel consumption to replace nuclear electricity. The exact opposite has happened. Germany has gone from 15% low-carbon energy in 2001 to 24% in 2023. The reason for this is because of economics. Nuclear energy and renewables are competing over resources and capital, and because renewables are objectively better for decarbonization, you get better results by going with renewables. France and West Germany had a shared history with nuclear power. They both built up their nuclear fleets in response to the oil crisis, and they both abandoned their plans in the 80s as it failed to bear fruit. France had originally intended to fully electrify their country with 180 nuclear reactors. They got to 50 before the cost of nuclear energy killed their nuctopia. So their electricity was cleaner, but they couldn't actually expand electrification, so fossil fuels still dominated their primary energy consumption. West Germany was much more conservative with their rollout. Although it's misleading to say they shut down nuclear reactors because of greens, it was entirely because of money. The only nuclear reactors that were killed were East German designs that required expensive overhauls to Western standards and an unpopular sodium reactor that was less economical than conventional designs. The West German fleet instead served out their 40-year service life before being retired and replaced by new renewable energy. Instead of Germany shutting down their reactors, it would be more accurate to say that France Frankensteined theirs. The French nuclear reactors were designed to last 40 years too. Every nuclear reactor is because that is the optimal lifespan in terms of cost. And that would be fine if the French nuctopia had sustained itself and continued to build new reactors to replace them. But it was too expensive, so they stuck with oil instead. If France wanted to maintain a fleet of 50 reactors, the cheapest and most efficient way possible, then they needed to bring a new reactor into operation every 4 months to replace an old one starting 20 years ago. Instead, they spent 20 years building a single reactor. But the French just overhaul existing reactors instead, and the problem is solved, right? Well, no, because these old reactors are like an old car past its warranty, Everything was designed to only last up until that point, so you have problems appearing in sequence from parts past their best-by date. And this is beyond the scope of the original design, so you have to figure out how to repair stuff as the designer had no plan for this. All of this to say that overhauling reactors is more expensive than building new ones. In addition, if you have to shut down the reactor to maintain it, then it's not generating electricity. And since their operational cost is fixed, that means the less time the reactor is operating, the more you have to charge to match the cost of operations. It's much more efficient to just run reactors within their original lifespan while you plan their replacement. The real reason the French extend the life of their reactors isn't because it's a good idea economically. It's a cynical political decision, because nuclear energy is popular in France, in part because of the large numbers of French people who have their job linked to the supply chain of the world's largest nuclear electricity producer per capita. The party in power doesn't want all those voters nursing a grudge against them in the next election for costing them their jobs. This is the reason behind every nuclear life extension around the world. They're all pork barrels. It's just more prominent in France because the scale of their problem makes it more noticeable. Nuclear power is a white elephant for France. It looks impressive, costs too much, lacks practical value, and they can't get rid of it. And because of the money wasted on nuclear energy, France can't invest as heavily into expanding their renewables like Germany can, to the point the descent in uptime on their reactors is faster than they can replace with new renewable installations. By comparison, Germany lacked the political baggage with nuclear. The only people who support it are the contrarian party, and only to attract nuke cells because no one else will play off their lack of intelligence, or possibly to extend the life of gas and coal in Germany. Energy policy is a zero-sum game. There are ultimately two choices. You can either do the obvious choice and embrace the green transition by supporting renewables, or you can try to retard it and extend the reliance on fossil fuels because of your personal agenda for politics or money. That is why France wants to pollute European Union green energy initiatives by adding nuclear energy to their approved power sources. The EU has a limited amount of funding allocated to green energy, and France wants them to use those resources to fund their existing infrastructure, instead of using the money optimally to produce the most green energy possible and in turn reduce fossil fuel consumption the most. That's what we see in every energy system on the planet. Whether it be the Australian opposition proposing divesting solar to fund nuclear reactors, or the Tennessee Valley Authority choosing to build new natural gas plants instead of cheaper solar farms. It's also why it is asinine to say we should support nuclear and renewables. The objective reality is that you are arguing for taking resources away from implementing the best solution to support a system that has already proven it doesn't work. Anyone who actually understands how the electrical grid operates understands this. And so any so-called expert who advocates for nuclear is just shilling for fossil fuels. The ignorant normies who argue for both meanwhile want to feel smug and superior by attaching their emotions to an energy source. They think they're as smart as King Solomon because they want to cut a baby in half while missing the entire point of the fable. Now, for my final point, I would like to note that the French energy system was perfectly poised to become an energy superpower and dominate the energy economy of Europe, if they had only made better use of their resources instead of playing short-term politics, which is why this is so disappointing. France has the largest land area of any EU member, grid connections with all of their neighbors. The EDF is publicly owned and holds a huge amount of capital compared to any private utility, thanks to their massive investment in nuclear energy. Additionally, the French energy demand isn't growing like in China. In an alternate world where France retired their nuclear fleet on time, they could have used the hundreds of billions of euros wasted on life extensions to roll out wind, solar, and batteries in huge quantities, producing cheap, clean electricity, improving everyone's quality of life, undercutting fossil fuels, spurring on mass electrification in Europe, supporting rural French communities, etc. They could have been what Norway ended up being, except cleaner. Instead, the only way you can defossilize the French economy now is by torching cars during riots and inducing recessions. Thanks for listening. Let me know if you learned anything new or if you want to try and argue with me in the comments so I can clown on you. Until next time, this has been Divest.